Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back, my beautiful empresses. Welcome to Embody Your Empress. My name is Sarah King. I'm the founder of Empress Nation in this amazing podcast. We are here to open the doors of new perspectives, see what is for you, know what your truth is, and expand you into your aligned self. Today, we have an amazing guest who blends neuroscience, stress reduction, and simple systems. Oh my gosh, who doesn't need more of this in their lives? With the heart led strategies of the founder of Caterpillar to Butterfly, someone who supports high achieving women, CEOs, and business owners from that dreaded word, burnout. Selina Boshorin, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sarah. It's great to be here. It's great to be here.
Fantastic to have you. I cannot wait to learn so much from you today. So, I would love to invite you to share with us all who you are as a human, as a soul, and what led you on this mission.
Okay, so I've been on a journey, I suppose, working within leadership settings, governance, and coaching for about the past 16, kind of 20 years. And I think through my journey, really, I started to look at the leaders that I had, but also, as I said, my real interest in the impact of leadership and what it does to us. I also kind of in a former life, as I said, I've been through quite a few careers, but one of my career journeys was as a careers advisor and I'm working in employability. So really supporting people in terms of looking at their own gifts, looking at their own skills. And then kind of, as I said, it really led me to, develop the business. My first kind of version of it was, as I said, looking at the career side, but also marrying up the confidence. I started working with a lot of people, kind of discovered the challenges around confidence, around mindset, and around productivity. And as I've got more over it in the years, as I said, it sort of enables me to train in the different modalities to see the importance of mindset, the NLP stuff, the different, as I said, systems and how important that is. And then also, as I said, I know with my own journey what it feels like and just seeing different leaders along the way. Um, Again, I'm part of various volunteering, part of community work as well. So again, seeing lots of people in those communities, in those settings that really want to give, that are so much about people. But as I said, seeing all the challenges kind of that come with it. And this has sort of led me to the different areas and interest of my business. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness. What a great starting for you would have met so many people and helped so many people and it would have been so diverse. What the neuroscience, right? Neuroscience can often be something that people go, oh, that sounds really cool, but they're a little bit daunted by it. They're a little bit standoffish. They think if you delve into it, it might break your brain or something. Like, it's too sciencey. Especially in the spiritual community, like NLP is gaining, it's a beautiful modality. It's gaining traction. And when you look at science and you look at sort of the more woo-woo spiritual side of things, I love how there's more coming together of
Mm.
everything. How much of a role does neuroscience play when you are speaking with high achieving women?
I think for me, as you said, the fact that I started to see it for myself was how much is science. Obviously, there are our emotions, but I think it makes it more comfortable in a way, understanding how our brain is working, why things are happening. Even something like procrastination, a lot of people think, oh, it means I'm lazy or it means but when we look at kind of the brain and the mind and just how that's working, or how our nervous system is working, or do we feel psychologically safe as the words are? But all of those are foundations that help us to understand the emotion. And that's kind of always my starting point. It's kind of like saying, you've got this car, you've got this vehicle, and you need to understand, right, where are gears, where is this, where's the objects that are within it. So it's breaking that down to normal language. There are reasons, there are things that are happening, there are chemicals that are moving, which are resulting in us to do certain things, but also the fact that we are in control of that then. That we have, you put certain systems in place, or I don't feel bad when I feel tired. because this is what my brain is doing. Or when I'm experiencing brain fog, for example, look, this is science. There's a reason why that's happening. And I know I need to look after my body, my mind, how I'm feeling, and all of that. So that's usually kind of how I break it down. So it's that safety, but comfort in, it isn't about what we're telling ourselves necessarily. There's chemicals and there's reasons and there's things that are happening, and it's science of it.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned brain fog, and I feel like every woman in their 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s can identify with that, especially when you might be in a leadership role at work, you might be management, you might be entrepreneurial, um, you might be even going back and studying on top of all the other things you do in your life. So brain fog is it's a real thing. How can someone support themselves when they just get that layer that lays on top of their head and you feel frustrated? You feel like it won't ever go away.
Yeah, exactly. 100%, as you said, identifiable and real. I think the first thing is just the acceptance and understanding that it is a real thing. I think that's the first thing. I think a lot of people, what we do is we feel that, oh, it means I'm not good enough. Or, I don't know about you, but I have that thing sometimes when you're speaking and then you're like, hang on, what was I going to say? And you completely forget. And again, it's that overload of chemicals, it's overload of things in the brain. So it's one, that recognition. It's two, not feeling guilty as well. So that kind of emotional part of, oh my gosh, I used to be like this. I used to remember. And then I think for me, it's looking at then what are the systems, what are the simple things that you can do. So even if, for example, we've got a whole load of, we've always got to do list, it's always massive, but we're able to say, actually, you know what, I'm just going to do one thing, one very small thing, and you do that, you break your to-do list down and you celebrate that, and it's realizing when I'm in that position as well, I can do a little bit less, but it's okay. There will be other times I can do a little bit more. And then thinking about what are the things physically and emotionally that you can do to support yourself. So if it's about, health and things that are happening in your body, it's getting to understand what's happening in your body, getting to know yourself. Um, if it's emotional, if it's right, I get brain fog kind of when I'm feeling a little bit nervous or worried or, oh, well, there's just too much on my plate. And it's really having that conscious conversation with ourselves. What am I doing? How am I organizing myself? You know, am I celebrating just the small milestones and the small wins? Or am I trying to put, I know, especially as women, we try to put 100 billion things on the list and then it's like, you don't know the cutoff point. So it's getting that cutoff point. And even personally, I'll give an example of, of not being well for a little, the last week or so. And it's making that decision of, right, I had to say last week, for example, I'm going to cut off any evening activities, any extra things, training, meeting. I'm just not going to attend because I can get to a certain level, but I have to know the point that I can stop. And I think it's for all of us as well, when we're experiencing those feelings, those times, knowing our bodies, knowing our limits, and really looking at the things I can do, the things I can't, the things I'm going to pull back from as well. And just not feeling guilty about it. It's part of nature, life, our body, it's how it is. And developing simple systems, as I said, it could be writing things down, it could be using our diaries, it could be alarms, it could be scripts, all of those things that can help us as well.
Mm, yes. The era of people pleasing has finished, and the era of looking after ourselves has well and truly begun. And I love hearing a no from someone, or I love it when a friend goes, you know what, Sarah, I can't do our catch up, or can we reschedule? And I'm like, absolutely. Because usually I'm thinking it as well. I'm just about to send that message and they've already bet me to it. And I'm like, I love that we can be so open and honest and be like, I love you and I don't have the capacity right now. And the more we have these conversations and the more that we can encourage each other to really value ourselves and take that self-care practice to that next level, the better we are as friends, as people, all around as a society. We're going to be much better. Like, I would love in the next 10 years if we can eliminate this word burnout. Like burnout is everywhere. And it's everywhere because we're talking about it now. We're not hiding it in the shadows anymore. I would love it if we actually looked after ourselves and our mental health and our physical well-being and our spirituality and our goals are based around supporting ourselves and thriving within the goals rather than pushing to the limits for what seems like very little gain at times.
Mm.
Um, I love that you say celebrate the small wins. Celebrate the the little things. Like be really mindful of what's going well. How important is that for our brain to shift that focus on the negative to the positives?
That's a really important thing. So, as you might be aware, our brain has negative bias as well. So it kind of listens to the things that are not so good, and then the things that are win, it kind of minimizes them. I mean, one thing I always do in conversations with my team or kind of even with myself, I've learned as a practice, is thinking about the power of gratitude. So, when you start a meeting, when you start your day, when you're transitioning, it's really about sort of reversing that feeling in our brain. As you said, if we focus just on, okay, this isn't working, I haven't done this and I can't do this. It then, as you said, it affects our beliefs, it affects our body, it affects how we then carry things out. Whereas just even thinking, right, today I've got this to-do list and it's got 8 billion things on it. But the first bit, I mean, that's the other thing I've really been sort of tapping into. We have our to-do list and sometimes they are over ambitious and they're big and they're massive. And then we feel bad because we haven't been able to do it. But actually, if the first thing is right, I pick up the pen and I make the list. That's the first bit of action. Or I'm going to contact one person and then you celebrate that one and just keep moving. And it's also kind of that habit stacking, isn't it? When you're building and layering and putting one in front of the other. And it, for also from a kind of brain perspective as well, when it's seen us or when we see ourselves commit that one thing or celebrate that one thing, we're like, oh, I associate myself with this now. I am a person that can do that. Whereas our brain also likes to tell us, and the bit that does its job is saying, "Oh, this is wrong, or you haven't done this, or because we haven't achieved the whole massive cake, we're like, oh, it's only this small bit. But the more you do that, the more you celebrate, the more you build. It's that consistent. It also kind of really taps into the idea of our self integrity as well. So we're now following and honoring our word. We've done one bit, haven't had to do everything, but we've done one bit and we see ourselves and that changes kind of our posture and how we think. And we have these examples. And that's also always the thing as well. Our brain needs examples that this is the way we do things, this is the pattern, this is who we are. Whereas it keeps wanting to go back because of safety to the old, which is not actually safe.
It's funny how we get so in that trap, right? I had a situation, I'm like, I was safe and secure when this was all happening. And I had to be like, hang on a minute, Zero. There was nothing secure about that situation. Why are you telling yourself that now? Like I was trying to gloss over it. And I'm like, hang on, look at the real facts. You weren't feeling safe or secure. Okay, that's fine. I can be uncomfortable again in a different situation because it wasn't like that. I love the word self integrity. Like that is not used enough. Self integrity. That is beautiful. Um, so when someone is, let's say, reaching burnout levels, say the demands of the job are piling up. Doesn't matter what the to do list situation's going on. Everyone, boss is coming in with more. There's more coming in from meetings. Brain is at nearing capacity. You're trying to manage a team and you're worried you want to reduce the stress from them, so you're sort of filtering off things, but you are starting to feel physically drained, tired. It's hard to get up and get going. The decision making process is taking longer to get to. You're really fatigued at night and you're sort of losing that motivation with the job to keep going, losing that desire to kick those goals. How do you step in and support yourself before that burnout hits that button where it's like point of no return?
Yeah. So I think this point is always the bit that is kind of, you can do something at any stage, but I think it's good if people recognize it within this stage. I think that first bit is about that recognition. Also, it's about creating opportunities for yourself to stop. So whether that is looking for support as well, being clear, I think, about what it is that's the challenge, and even just being able to step back. So within that, it's also revisiting your values, your goals, what's important, and why you're doing what you're doing. So the first bit, obviously, give yourself that space, notify, speak to whoever you need to speak to, um, and step back. That's definitely kind of, really important on that. So you recognize, celebrate that you recognize it's not something to feel bad about. It's not anything to feel guilty about as well. So kind of once we get those feelings out on the table, how are we feeling? What is our response to things? And then it's, as I said, really getting to think about, okay, so what do I really want? Yeah. And sometimes we don't even fully know at that point. We just know that we kind of can't go in that direction anymore. Like we don't know and that's sometimes it. So it's stepping for 5 minutes and just sort of, creating those practices, whether it's the journaling, whether it's just the summit that gives you space. I think, burnout and overwhelm and all of that wants us to kind of keep going and keep going on the hamster wheel. But just stopping even for 5 minutes, being around um something, setting up some mini practices to think about what is it that I really need in this moment. And as I said, it doesn't need to be coherent. It doesn't need to be a full, perfect, wonderful list. In all its messiness, just stop, just breathe, get some support, kind of look at who's around for support, whether that's within work, whether that's like we said earlier on, I've got to say no to some things, we need to give those up. This is what my absolute priority is. These are my values. This is what's important to me. How do I feel inside? That's the bit that sort of bridges it. And then you start putting the systems and the processes. So look, I'm gonna stop here. I'm going to stop there. That means I've got to delegate. It means that I've got to make these changes. But as I said, unless we're honest, we can't do that. So yeah, it's not allowing and knowing also, I think that our brain will still continue to chat and it will still continue to make noise. So that noise is not the truth. I think that's also the other thing. We can think that that's the truth, but it isn't the truth. It's just talking. It's just doing its job, doing what it does. Um, so let's look at what do we need? What do I need right now? Let it do its list. Let me write. Let me find a way of gentle self care, gentle support, and then we can start kind of that big.
Mm. Our brain really does know how to talk, though. Like the things that it can go on tangents about and the way it speaks. And if you're not listening, it gets louder and louder. It does really have a mind of its own, literally.
Yeah. I mean, I've started thinking about it like it's almost like a frightened child because a lot of it, again, when we kind of, think about inner child's work and all of that, but it's kind of that version of us that doesn't feel safe. It connects patterns, it connects things that have happened, and then it makes it into, so, a way that really helps me now you know, and I converse with mine. I talk to mine, like, okay, how are we feeling? Oh, you feeling a bit upset? Okay, what are we worried about? Or giving, I know some people that give it characters or, and I had a conversation with someone recently who was saying, kind of imagine that they were different characters and you're gonna go on a drive or whatever and I think it was in a book I also read and it said to them, you know what, okay, we're all right, we're safe can go on a holiday. You can sit down. It's okay. So sort of when we look at it like that, it takes away the big scariness. Like, oh, it's all right. Or the inside out characters, if you've ever watched the film, it's that, isn't it? When we put them a bit animated. Okay, how are you feeling? Oh, you're just a bit worried, are you? Okay, all right. Not to minimize it, but just kind of to help us to see it as, yeah. something that we can identify.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. I don't think that's going to minimize it at all. I think if we personify what's going on with us rather than being too afraid to even look or listen to what's happening in our brain. I mean, it's our brain. Then we can build a relationship with that part of ourselves that often feels unseen or unheard. And it's just going, I'm just trying to keep you safe, Sarah. And I'm just going, go away. I don't want to listen. And yeah, it's doing the primalness of what it thinks is best. And um, we can have that conversation with ourselves about, come on, work together, not against each other.
That's it.
Yeah, beautiful. Um, so if we have someone new going into a leadership role, and you've got bright eyes, everything's on the table and it's all very lush and delicious and you want to jump straight into everything. What kind of tips would you give for that person to set themselves up with a structure that's going to be sustainable?
Oh, good question. And I think that's the important bit is about sustainability because we want to go in there, we want to impress, and we want to say, as you said, there's a balance of I think saying yeah, and there's that balance of kind of people pleasing and going overboard. I think in that initial stage also it's your opportunity to learn and to learn as much as you possibly can about where you are, to build those relationships and to really understand your strengths and understand what you're doing. It's also really important as well, like if there are, you know, identified tangible things in terms of what your what you need to achieve, for example, if you've got milestones, really understanding how they are. And I think one of the lessons I've learned as well, and sometimes women particularly, we come from that background as, I'm going to not stand out. I'm going to, let my work do the talking and there's no evidence of what we're doing. And I think looking back, if I was going into somewhere new or going into a new level, is understanding what are the priorities, how can I focus on the priorities and how can I evidence that with what I'm doing as well? So this is what I need to achieve. And it's not so much you're proving yourself, but it's demonstrating and backing up. I mean, I said this to someone recently. When you go into a meeting, you're not making things up. You're coming in there with facts. This is what I've done about this. This is how I've hit that. This is how this is. So when we're working in that way, it then takes away from the people pleasing. So I'm doing this just because I'm falling or just because I want to, whatever. But actually, it's look, this is the role, this is what I'm doing. But also in that process as well, seeking to build relationships, but again, not from a kind of people pleasing or I'm trying to for. The other thing also, we're finding our way when we're new, especially in leadership roles in terms of our leadership identity as well. So we've been aware of that, not following, okay, someone else's idea of leadership or someone else's, or, oh, I've got to come across really whatever. But again, it's establishing boundaries, showing up, learning, looking for those opportunities to kind of demonstrate. Um, there might be times, as I said, where we do put a little bit more in, obviously, but having that high, it's a balance of having a high standard, not people pleasing, being clear about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and knowing that this is a period of learning. It's okay. We are going to do things and we will make mistakes. And that's also the other part of it, not driving for perfection. And I think that can also get in the way sometimes as well, because we're new and we're trying to prove ourselves, or we've just been given this position and we want to prove it. We want to, so I think doing those things also that build ourselves up internally is also really important at this stage.
I love that. Yes, perfectionism isn't going to help proving anything and just like being very factual about what you're doing. I think that is underrated in many areas of our lives when we stick to the facts rather than letting the emotional side take hold of what's going on. Like it can be very easy to be in a meeting and you like read someone's face and you're going, oh no,
Right.
and you go into the whole story tangent and it ruins your like if you're especially if you're leading the meeting, ruins the whole presentation because you've like derailed yourself when you actually just stick to the facts and their face may be thinking about because they're hungry, they miss lunch. And I have nothing to do with you.
Yeah. I think that's a massive thing as well, is kind of not bending to how people's responses are as well. Because done that kind of where you look and you think, well, I can't tell that person that will be upset. And it's just like, you end up just running everywhere. So yeah, no.
Oh, great. Okay. So for the high achieving woman, what would be an ideal way to set up your day? So before going to work, like a morning routine, and then again at the end of the day when you're switching off from work, let's say they are switching off, um, and having a routine at the end of the day, what would be the ideal situation there for our brains?
So the ideal situation, I think, as we said, is kind of starting our day with as much gratitude as we possibly can. I think the other thing I've kind of really learned as well is about not being in that spirit of just rushing straight in. So even if it's 2 minutes, and like I said, there'll be days that, still not 100% perfect. We're not necessarily, not everyone may have 2 hours, to get up and, to do all the routine. So even if it's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, something that brings us slowly into. So as I said, obviously we've all got different persuasions, thoughts, beliefs, things like that. So using that faith, belief, spirituality, whatever it is as well, is a really good way of bringing us in. So things like journaling, things like gratitude, even if we're having a hot drink, for example, or a tea, and you're just able to spit and drink, as opposed to being able to run and rub straight away. That slow kind of, way brings us. Also, as I said, just making time to look at nature. So if we're working from home or we're inside, if you've got a tree or you've got something you can look at or plant like you've got behind you, and you can just look at it for 2 minutes without sort of, I've got to that. And yes, that might be some days, and it's infusing that as much into the day as possible. And then when we get to the end of the day as well, it's again having those practices. So what am I grateful for? What happened today? Can I read a book? Can I smell something that, smells nice? Or something that sort of infuses that level of beauty or calm into our life, even if it's only 5 minutes at the end every day, or the beginning of every day. As I said, it starts simple, start with what you have. Because sometimes people think, well, unless I've got 4 hours, then I'm not going to be able to do it at all. And again, it could be things like walk, you're thinking things that help your health, your nutrition, your walking and reading, something that's switching off and non-related for those that can get to the gym. If that's part of what you can do that. If it's walking, as I said, if it's sitting, if it's music is also a really, really good one as well. So that little bit of movement, just listening to one song. I find that as well, like just listening to one song that's upbeat or got some good lyrics, just having that is really helpful. Things like coloring, drawing, mindfulness, craft, all of that sort of things help to recharge us. And as I said, it just could be like a color one line and listen to half a song. Like that's all I've got time for. That's perfectly all right. But it's that pattern into the world that it does. And just as I said, getting those kind of endorphins and stuff inside our bodies moving as well.
Yes, I love that. It just took me back to when I was like 5 years old. And I was just thinking, TV was always on in the background, like in the evenings in my house, but my mum would sit there and she would knit or crochet while she was doing that. And I was just thinking, oh, the hobbies and the crafts, they seem like, out of the house activities on the weekend now. Like we're all sitting there watching Netflix, like, or scrolling. Maybe it would be nice to bring back some little hobbies and crafts as a more regular evening activity. I love that, Selena. I think I love it. You can tell all my friends are going to get hobbies and crafts stuff for Christmas now.
Yeah. I was like, gosh.
I love it. Right. Okay. So this might be an easy question, but how powerful are words then? If we are going through our day and we're talking to ourselves, what's the power behind what we're saying?
Oh, words are so powerful. Even tiny things, kind of when we get in the mind of, oh, I'm not good at this, or oh, I can't do that. That's all reinforcing those negative bias, that negative thought into our brain, that judgment, that fear. So it is really being aware of what we're saying. I mean, I know a lot of it is ingrained, like we get so used to using particular language that we don't even realize, or sometimes even if it's kind of that idea of, being self-deprecating, we think they're being modest and we think they're being humble and we can't hear. All of that again really impacts on that as well. And kind of as I said, oh, with that, stick with that. We think about how would we talk to other people. And so often we say as well, isn't it? Like if that's how we were talking to other people, like they tell us to go away, So it's realizing that words do have power because then they limit us in terms of our actions and our beliefs and what we see in that reality. If we're telling ourselves, oh God, I'm not good at this, I'm so bad at this, then again, we're going to have that sense of fear. We're going to have that sense of dread. We're going to feel like, oh, that thing is really difficult. Whereas it's, again, it's about reversing and changing that and bringing ourselves out of those patterns as well.
Mm, so powerful, right? So powerful. I love to write little mantras on my bathroom mirror. And my daughter, she's 9, she goes, "Why do you keep writing stuff on the mirror?" And I'm like, it's so I can read it to myself. It's so I can train my brain, think something differently." And she
Mhm.
goes, "Ah, that's cool." And so she grabs the whiteboard marker and then she starts writing stuff on there too. And then it comes into a whole big artwork, the stars and there's love hearts everywhere. And I
Yeah.
loved encouraging that because I had been doing it for quite a while before she noticed or before she said something about it. But when she did, she took the power from it as well. And then it became like a whole family like play out of, okay, well, what does each person need? And feel free. And then we change it as we need to. And like I had to clean the mirror the other day because the toothpaste got everywhere. So I'm like, I've got to rub it off, but grab the marker and just write whatever you're called to next. So I'm interested to see how the next scene plays out for us there.
Oh, that's brilliant. So good. And it's encouraging that from that young age as well. So that's going to be part of what she does. I think is so important.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful, like seeing that it's not just us, like everything, whether regardless if you have children or not. When you do things like this, when you start shaping your mind differently, when you choose to do differently throughout the day, when you choose self care as your priority in the workplace, that has the ripple effect on your colleagues as well. Like when they see you going, I'm not going to push myself to burn out anymore. I'm going to stand up and say no. I'm going to stick to the facts. I'm going to be like, this was the target. We're sticking to that. I'm going to prioritize not going out to work drinks after when I've had a really hard day because I need to go home and get some sleep and reduce that brain fog. That has a ripple effect on the people around you directly, on the people around them, and then it spreads. And then our whole community and society will shift how we look at our careers and our goals and ourselves, most importantly.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's so true.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, beautiful, Selena. I have 3 wonderful Empress questions to ask you. Our first one is, how do you embody your Empress?
Oh, love that question. So I think for me, it's one about the realizing how important self-care is. As I said, there's lots of busyness and lots of things to tend to, but it's really looking at those ways to really infuse that kind of that beauty, that opportunity. I think that's kind of what, I'm really focusing on. So whether it's sleep, whether it's nature, whether it's my grounding practices, all of those things, switching off the reduced services, saying no, those are things I've really, really been kind of tapping in. And then also kind of what you were saying about that ripple effect as well. So really looking at how do I nurture my nervous system? How do I keep myself and my core, especially when I'm going into interactions as well. So really that nurturing of the inside, but also kind of the other things physically. That is part of that.
I love that. I love it. Okay. And what does your Empress energy feel like?
Oh, I love it. So when I think of it, it's kind of a bit mixture of a bit glittery, a bit silky, and a bit like what would be the other thing? Is it velvety as well?
My chest just contracted and then it burst out of a sparkly, glittery velvet bubble. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Great question.
And especially because in Australia it's hot a lot of the time, especially this time of the year. But when it does cool down in the winter months, I love to wear really touchable fabrics. So I had a velvet sort of drape on when I was doing meditation the other day, and people are just I've just got to touch you, Sarah. I'm like, go for it. Like, it's so sensual. I love it. I'm like, all the furry things. I'm like, yep,
Yeah.
come and like be squinchy, but yeah, glittery. Oh, I just love it. With
Wicked.
beautiful descriptions. Might have to steal some of those, Selena. Beautiful. And what are your parting words of wisdom for inspiring your nation?
Oh, love it. So my parting words would be get to know and love yourself. I think that's the important thing. Get rid of the should and have fun.
Yes, get rid of the should. I know I say it still too much. And I even say it when I'm doing these interviews and I'm like, should. And I'm like, oh, but should, and like air quotes, because I'm not telling you what to do or not telling me what to do.
Probably.
It's a
Yeah.
sneaky word.
It is a very one, isn't it? It has a hold that we don't realize sometimes. It finds
Ah,
its way in there.
the programming is real on that one for me. I'm like, whoa. But that's okay. I'm aware of it and I'm
Oh,
working on it.
that's it. Work in progress. No perfect. All good.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us today, Selena. I know I've had a great time learning, even just the reminders, like celebrating those small wins, not to make my to-do list too big. Oh my, you should see my office right now. I have billboards, so I've just got magnets everywhere and I'm a to-do list maker. So I've just got all these different lists up and I'm just looking at them going, yep, cool. But it gives me peace of mind to write them. So I'm just like,
That's
"Hey,
it.
be there.
That's it. Right for this. But I'm not gonna kill myself if it doesn't. You focus on the priority. Thank you.
Usually after a couple of months, I look at it and I go, I don't need this anymore. I scrunch it up and throw it away.
Exactly.
Empress can. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Selena. We're going to have all your contact details in the show description. So make sure you go on and you jump on and you follow Selena over on the socials and that you reach out and you get some of her firsthand knowledge. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank
joining us.
you. Thanks for having me. It was brilliant.